Hi, everybody. It's coming down cats and dogs still. It started a few days ago and it reached a peak of 75 mile an hour winds, and now it has just been steady downpour, steady downpour. People are always clamoring for celestial signs and wonders, and this, you hear that? This could well be one of them. We haven't had a rain downpour like this in years. Let's put it that way. I specifically remember when the last big one was, and it had a spiritual component to it too. And I'm going to offer my humble opinion, extra biblical opinion, about what this all, I think, is a reflection of. Well, we're in constant communication with high command, and sometimes the response is dramatic. It's been a couple of nights ago. My better half Soledad and I went to see the Jesus Revolution movie, and as we were exiting, we went to a 3 p.m. matinee, and close to around 5:30, let's say, local time, when we exited the movie theater on the road home, even before getting home, we had gotten a call from somebody, Brian and Barbara, thanks for that heads up, that in the neighborhood where we were in San Diego, there it was a flood advisory expected to roll into town in just a couple of hours from when the distress call came in, or the heads up call came in from them. And sure enough, on the freeways, there were signage that like Amber Alert signs saying, you want to not be in this area by 8 p.m. because the roads could be completely flooded out. That's how much downpour was to be expected. And wind, like very unusual. Have the spiritual antenna affixed, paying attention to things that are happening all around. And it happened to coincide with the premiere date of this movie. We know, my significant other and I commiserate with people that were there for the baptisms at Pirates Cove in Southern California. By the way, that same location, Pirates Cove, is where Gilligan's Island was filmed. The weather started getting rough. If not for the courage of the fearless crew, the minnow would be lost. Art imitating life, imitating art. A disturbance or a renaissance, like we were talking about just yesterday with the glossolalia, speaking in tongues or hearing from the Lord in unorthodox ways. The Lord wants to cast a wide net, and some people are speaking to the lost, the broken, and the hungry in their language as best as we can. We do that here. This is the target demographic are the nerds and geeks. They understand when I talk using that language in a contemporary parable style format. Boy, on a day like this, the flip side of this all, we help the homeless, and there's going to be a lot of people just shivering, and could die from 75 mile an hour winds. That's crazy. Our heart goes out to many of them. Please join us in prayer to protect people that are in direct line of fire of the wrath, if you will, or not. Because on this occasion, I'm thinking that a lot of people went to revisit their memories of having been participated in the mass baptisms there at Pirate Cove over the course of a year and a half. That Lonnie Frisbee and Chuck Smith were down there doing that regularly. There have been a long 5 decades extension of the Lord's, of that impact that moment has had two Protestant evangelical new ways to worship were birthed from that continue through this day. Calvary Chapel and the Vineyard movements. That in many cases, many of them have disavowed Lonnie Frisbee because he succumbed to AIDS when AIDS, there was no way to stop it. It was ravaging people, and the probability was that he had passed away either through too much of the influence of the time. These hippies were expressing free love, and Lonnie was wrestling with his own personal demons during that time. We covered that yesterday in part, and it carries over to today. Or drug use, because there was a lot of narco trafficking going on, particularly heroin and LSD. And so there was exchanges of needles. And those people who came out on the other side unscathed, for every one of those, there is a tale of tragedy. Despite all of that, so you have some of these people who are now, they were in their 20s then or younger, and now they're in their late 60s, mid 70s, late 70s, or older, revisiting memory lane by watching this movie, how it tells the story of this movement, this revival that took place on the beaches of Southern and Northern California. And like we talked about in part yesterday, when you're not doing much to advance the causes of Christ, you're sitting on your hands, you're a wallflower, you're not putting a smile on the faces of the Savior and Messiah and the royal court, the heavenly host and saints. Priority one, if you ask me. Periodically, throughout each and every day, seek to have real relationship, real exchange, real rapport, be transparent, wear it on your sleeve. It's okay. It's all about, as the colloquial saying goes, keeping it 100. It felt to me as we exited the theater that a lot of people, especially the OGs, the original gangsters, if you will, spiritually speaking, left that theater going, what have I done to lay groundwork to usher in the near future Christian theocracy, the second coming fast approaching? But they left that theater wondering to themselves, what have I done? I was on fire when I went to Pirates Cove. I had a gushing embarrassment of spiritual riches. I was an Olympic torch, completely spiritually speaking, on fire for the Lord. Where did that person go? What have I done in the 50-some years since that occurred? Why did I let it just die down? Why did I let it turn into a little matchstick, barely up, if at all, the embers? Why has it not grown into a raging global phenomenon? Well, I think that part of what you're experiencing right now with the unorthodox, to be certain, fearfully and wonderfully made celestial sign and wonder of this heavy downpour. And remember, gang, weather moves from left to right across American Beulah. So this is a curious thing that's happening right now. All this rain, I think, is part of following the viewing of the movie, following revisiting where you've been, where we're headed, the present, or where it's going in the future. The relaying of a baton. Now it's for the next generations to hit the ground running and take it and run with it. But remember, gang, in the Bible, there's no word for retirement. So these old guys and gals, they're having their moment, a cathartic moment, if you will, of national remorse. You can hear it. It's audible. It's breezy. It's the wind. You can't contain the wind in a bottle. It moves out as it wants. And the two passages that we chose, Luke 15, Hosea 6, one of them is about this issue. It's a parallel to this issue that we're dealing with right now of jealousy. of how back in the day of Frisbee and Smith, and then later Greg Laurie, there were people that were observing everything that was going on, even from the Pepe Le Pews, going, why did good men like Chuck Smith not have as much of a explosion, a wellspring of revival as this upstart, seemingly, Lonnie Frisbee, with no formal education, just was a wild man in the in the woods, running around naked, crying out to God, not unlike in Forrest Gump, the famous scene where Lieutenant Dan is screaming at God from the top of a ship, going, "This has been a long time coming between you and I. It's time we settle the score. You call this a storm? You call this a storm?" And they survived a beautiful, beautiful moment in that film. I think people are going, God, I let you down. The tears that are being collected in a bottle by the Lord, your tears, your cries, your moans are expressed. The movement of the Spirit that is in you, the indwelling presence, turbulence, not to mention all the fiery darts that the enemy, who's prowling around like a lion waiting to devour, is throwing at us during this time. These are badges of honor, stripes to be earned, surviving this all, let alone persevering. The other part of the scripture here that hit me hard, and I've been dwelling on it all day. I desire mercy, not sacrifice. We need to realize that there are people who are on the fence, who may be on the far left, who have been participating in the persecutions, the antagonisms, the censorships of our brethren, not unlike Saul, who becomes Paul later, who was a persecutor of the highest order back in the day, led to the stoning of Stephen through some of his efforts. Stephen and Paul are now fighting on the same side, right? Up in heaven. And it feels to me like a scene out of one of my favorites of old, Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow, where Christopher Reeve is the magistrate admonishing Ichabod Crane, Johnny Depp, going, we have a good judicial system, but we are not pleased with the way you're trying to gather your forensics, this modern way of thinking, right? And a lot of times the old fogies, the old established dead vine believer gatherings didn't know what to do with this new way of looking at God, praising God in new worship styles, and showing up dressed down, if you will, for the time. And they had their phrase, there's only one way. There's a trick question that happens in seminary. The gathering class, they all think they're know-it-alls. Barely can scratch the surface. There's so much to learn, and it cannot be fathomed entirely. No one denomination can wrap their arms entirely around everything that is of God. It's not possible. So just be open to receiving new outpourings from high command. Let it fall afresh in a constant state of learning. In Sleepy Hollow, he says, I'm going to send you to try to get to the bottom of a grisly series of murders that have taken place in a Dutch community off and yonder, upstate New York, if you will. And the young upstart constable, policeman, says, I will take it. I will take that case and I will crack the case, but not without a lot of resistance, right? The enemy is not giving up voluntarily for anything. This is the clash of the titans, but remember, gang, the battle is the Lord's. We are not going to be taking on mano a mano the four killer bees, for example, Baphomet, Belial, Baal, and Beelzebub. No, angels in Scripture, when discussing the whereabouts of Moses, the demonic operatives and the guardian angels that are not part of the fallen angelic outcasts, they had a little fight with the head fallen angel going, the Lord is going to deal with you, animal. The Lord will deal with you in perfect timing. They could have duked it out. Immortals they are, manufactured from imperishable material. The whole thing to remember about the devil, some people take the position, it is inconclusive. There is no consensus about this. We heard about this last Sunday at House Church. In theory, that the fallen angelic outcast will be given okay, y'all can come back now. Victory has been secured through Christ, and people had a chance to choose one way or the other. But I don't take that position. The punishment has to fit the crime. These people are made indestructible from materials that the architectural blueprints, they cannot be killed, the angels, the fallen ones. So hence, the need to create a place of eternal damnation. And Jesus says there is more celebration. This harkens back to the regret, the national remorse. There's more celebration, Luke 15, in the finding of one lost sheep than to celebrate the fact that 99 saved people already, who are already in the fold, who are already part of the general citizenry in heaven. They're in already. That's wonderful. What do you want? Additional hurrah? You want some corn or flour tortillas? Let me give you some congratulatory. You're in? Good. What are you doing for those who are not in? What are you doing for the broken and the hungry? So it's one thing that a lot of these people, they go to these commemorations, these yearly gatherings to remember and reflect, and there is value in learning from our past mistakes, our shortcomings, and setting the record straight in some cases, how history gets revisionist, like some of the leadership in the Vineyard tried to completely cross out the participation of Lonnie Frisbee, actually one of the pillars of the whole movement itself. No, not having it. God chooses who he wants to. Is it not my prerogative, Jesus told the inner circle, if I want the Apostle John to be an immortal and live forever and not suffer death? That is an argument, a discussion for another time. We've talked about it here before. The world's first homicidal maniac, Cain, killing his brother Abel. God already knew the answer, but he asked a rhetorical question after the first murder in the world. He said, "Where's Abel?" To Cain. Cain was worried, very. He says, well, I don't know. Am I my brother's keeper? What are you talking about? Where is Abel? Hey, where is Abel, God? He's tried to be crafty, right? Shrewd, ingenious. And God already seeing through that, right? You cannot put roadblocks with God. The wind moves where it wants to. He said, oh, you're going to play it like that, eh? I already know what you did. And I'm going to put a mark on you. The mark of Cain. Nobody can touch you and kill you and go after you, or they themselves will get even worse punishment. So, and again, an argument in silence. We don't have consensus on this. But Cain may be walking the earth to keep a record, a history account of all these ups and downs of society and how we go through repeat cycles and we relive tragedies. It's just a mess. And then by contrast, perhaps, you've got not John the Baptist, but the BFF, the beloved, the Apostle John, Visions of the Apocalypse, who wrote, among other writings, Revelation. That Apostle John is who Jesus was talking about during the Last Supper. Is it not my prerogative? If I want things to go a certain way versus another way, I hold the keys. And so when believer gatherings happen, and even special occasions, like we participated in one, Soledad and I, in memory of the Jesus movement from decades ago. There were some of the old fogies, the old group that came in, and with great respect, we helped pass out hundreds of Bibles during that gathering. We were ministering, and there were some people that were on the fence, and some people skeptic, and some people jaded, and some people glass half empty. Leadership, because they've been burned out, maybe burned out by people who are in the fold and yet have nothing they think better to do than to bust chops on their fellow brethren who are doing work. I receive it a lot. I receive what I interpret from people as jealousy, We don't like what you're doing. This is not effective. You hear these darts that are lobbed. They may be hearing whispers of their own from the father of lies, doubt, discouragement, depression, that they want to forward onto other people. A lot of times I just brush it off, but sometimes I go, you don't like what we're doing? Well, do your own ministry. Who's stopping you? You're stopping you. Why do you have nothing better to do? Aren't there bigger fish to fry? We asked a rhetorical question yesterday. Is it because of the flawed nature of Lonnie Frisbee, for example? Is it worse to never have reached for the heavens or to have attempted to reach the heavens in your flawed state? The water is a cleansing agent, falling afresh, and I think it is in direct response to these tears, las lágrimas. This country, remember, this movie's showing all over the United States. We're embattled against Beulah, against fallic demonic operatives that are operating in our land. We shouldn't be taking it. We shouldn't be swallowing it. We shouldn't wave the white flag and surrender. The battle is the Lord's, but we can also have an impact on people. And that Luke 15 chapter comes to mind. There's, of the many things that are important in this world, yes, I've led Bible studies. We publish a entertainment, daily changing, paperless, free, you're welcome, digital devotional. All that has its place. It's good. But the main thing that we do, which shines like no other thing, is to perform the Great Commission. Ooh. To actually have a physical presence, the envoy, the olive branch, reaching out to people who are oblivious, who are in the state of, if that, spiritual infancy, old and young, eating the equivalent of spiritual Gerber baby food, that really haven't really processed this all out before it's too late. They're on the clock, just like you are, and needing to expedite these things because we don't know. The end could be very, 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 very close. Got no idea how much longer we all have left. And you wake up and 50 years have gone by, and some of these people have been maybe in their private time at home expressing remorse, regret. I didn't get enough done. I could have done so much more. They're having a Schindler's List moment. I could have sold this watch. More people freed. This type of thing. You can help us. You can help participate right from the comforts of your lazy boy chair. Partner with us. We actually go out. We actually go out on Skid Row. And there is rejoicing in heaven with what we do. It has more worth than going to preach to the cronies in the relic constructs of church. Those people are already in the fold. What are they doing? Very few do anything, if that. To bring people that don't know anything about the Lord. That is a badge that nobody can take away from Lonnie. They had people of all walks. Some hadn't the foggiest clue. Maybe they went there for the wrong reasons, for drugs, and there were a lot of cute, handsome or cute people, young people they wanted to fraternize with. They were soul searching. A lot of people out there hungering, thirsting, but they're not quite sure what, right? And they get strayed. There's detours on the racetrack of this life we're trying to live out that goes very, very quickly. This is the beginning of immortality, and some of us, we don't lift a finger, okay? I don't want to say that. I don't want to call you out there. But for some of you, you only learn things the hard way. You need a kick in the pants. I'm here to give it to you. Yeah! Right? You need to crack that good book open. It needs to look like a rented mule, not in mint condition. What's the matter with you? Make a difference. The rain can be therapeutic. The Lord then, hearing the regrets, the cries of people. Remember, there's no word retirement in the Bible. So you were regretting when you're at home after having seen the movie. You saw it. You go, man, well, I go to these reunions and old friends reconvene, reunite, but what are we doing to help the lost sheep? Are we going out there to really make an effort to find them, to bring them back? You're only going to be able to look yourself in the mirror and have yourself to blame, dummies, if you don't act on making a different spiritual carpe diem. Seize the day! I love you, Lord. Please lay a hand of blessing on those who take this baton, a literal baton on their end, proverbial and figurative here for now, passing from one to the other so that they wake up and smell the homeless, as the saying goes, the unflattering. Wake up, smell the coffee of doing something, of actually putting into practice what we blah, blah, blah. Lord, literally drinking a portion, sharing a portion of your sufferings, Lord. But showing that you come first, top triage priority, wanting you to rejoice at that lost sheep. We had a most tremendous experience among many, because we go out monthly without fail. We're getting ready to go out, and hours from now we're going out. We go once a month, a sacred promise, a solemn oath kept. And thank you to the volunteers who put all that together, because it takes a small group here in the Bat Cave to put it all together, and it's well documented right here, well documented. We can sleep better. We've actually done our work, and then afterward, traditionally, we go for a bite to eat. And how much better then does the food taste, knowing that we've helped other people? The same as with other things in life. Oh, the experience, the major experience, the major example of that rejoicing was, and I have shared this before, a lady approached the Batmobile. You know, we hand out the care packages from the actual interstellar Batmobile, Ezekiel chariot, as it were, on actual assignments, real work. Each and every month, it's well documented. It's on the site I just showed you. She comes up, a lady, like in her late 40s, comes up and goes, I remember you guys last year. You gave us a Christmas care package. Now we give it out every month, but she had been a recipient of one of them. Bibles, clean socks, reading glasses, spiritual arts and crafts, a Christian tract, TRACT, water bottle, snacks, a baker's dozen items, sanitary wipes, a pandemic mask, and she goes, the day that you handed those out was the day that I had predetermined, had decided that I was going to kill myself and commit suicide. Scripted adventure that nobody can take away what we did on that day. And how many more people will we meet later when we meet our Maker, and we meet up with the people who have gone ahead of us, who intermingled with us, that received care packages and the little assistance that we give, to say finally, thank you. You helped us. We're here. I'm going to leave you with a saying that comes from a theatrical production that I wrote and produced and directed on campus at the University of California, San Diego. The title of the show was Psychobabble, Religion and the Forces That Draw Us Away. Shades of Frisbee without me ever having met Frisbee. The dawn of your youth came and went in the night, silent like a burglar committing a theft. And after it's done, you've come undone because fun time's gone. The songs that once called nature, and the human nature that awaits to call you back to paradise, lacks the vice to entice you through a dark blue ebb which flows from the tempest-tossed vessel of society that we have all willfully boarded and hoarded temporary sport. So now that us flowers who took longer hours and April showers to draw our power are blooming, you sit blooming at past insincerities of ill-begotten, rotten, cashed-in chips, waiting for the raindrops. The teardrops of God to fall on your petals and have mercy. I wrote that. Have yourself a good day, troops. We'll see you tomorrow. Batman out.